right, just a reminder, guys, all of your lines are on mute. So if you want to ask a question, hit the chat option down below, and we'll call you on one at a time. I guess we can start it off. Let's go to Sam Pell with the Washington Post. Sam, please go ahead.
Hi, John. How are you? Good. Just wanted to ask you basically how you and your family have been doing at this time, just what you guys have been doing to kind of pass the time.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. We've been doing our best, trying to come up with as many activities as we can. I think we're almost down to none of our Easter stuff that we got the kids just from, pulling things out and trying to find some ways. And, it's been great to spend a lot of time with them, but it's a change.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, we'll go to Tom Galletti with NHL.com. Tom, please go ahead.
Hey, John. Just wondering what you, other than staying busy with the family, what have you been doing to kind of try to stay in shape, and how difficult is this not knowing when you might start up or if you might start up again?
Yeah, I think it's definitely difficult. Just trying to do as much as you can. I think time-wise, you try to, for me anyways, it has to kind of be done in the morning, or else things get too squirrely as the day goes along with the kids and things to do and whatnot. And it's a little bit different, I would say, at least from maybe if this happened at the kind of beginning of your training portion in the summer, would be a lot more difficult. But since where we were at in the season and everything, I think that's kind of the only savings grace in terms of trying to keep that level as high as you can to where it's not a real tough training camp coming out of this thing.
Thanks, Carly. Rob Carlin with NBC Sports Washington. Rob, please go ahead.
Hey, John. Nice job keeping the drawing in the line the other day on Instagram. That was
well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Very well. I struggle with that myself. So
I'm honing my skills a lot.
Yeah, sadly, we all are. Obviously, no one really knows how this thing's going to play out if and when you return to the ice for actual games. We have to wait and see what the time frame is. But how would you want it to go? Because everyone seems to have a different feel on whether or not there should be a couple of regular season games or jump right into the playoffs.
Yeah, I think there's obviously a lot of factors in that question. I think that none of us can predict, especially not right now, I would say. I think there has to be probably some sort of abbreviated regular season, I would say, and in terms of, teams that haven't played the same amount of games. That's a real tough way to end the season, I would say. And so, and at the same time, as a player, we're in a playoff position. I don't think you would want your first game to be game one of the first round of the playoffs. So how do I see it playing out? If I had to guess, maybe we would do half of the remaining games in the regular season, but that's all up for debate and depends on the timeline and what we're able to fit in, if at all.
Thanks, John. Next question goes to Chip Briere with ABC7. Chip, please go ahead.
Hey, John, appreciate you doing this. I'm curious to know, I've heard your teammates talk about keeping in touch with everyone, same as Reardon. Are there any group chats going on or Zoom conference calls you're having with teammates to try and keep in touch with everybody? Because isolation could be really hard to go through if it's just your family and your kids, as great as that is, just to keep up with your teammates and such.
Yeah, there hasn't really been too many Zoom phone calls. I think you call your teammates or text them here and there whenever. Everyone's obviously dealing with different circumstances of the quarantine, and people are, in different places too. So yeah, I think we all try to stay in touch as much as possible, but it's not like every other day we have a Zoom conference call just to say what's up with each other.
Thanks, John. Next question goes to Ben Raby with Caps Radio 24/7. Ben, please go ahead.
Hey, John. Question is just related a little bit to the conditioning, but as far as skating, how does it compare to an off season as far as how long you're off the ice and being unable to skate? I would imagine under these conditions, what could the challenge be collectively for all players being off the ice for as long as you potentially are?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest, kind of hurdle that everyone's going to have to deal with. I think, for most people in the NHL, I would say that the first, beginning portion of the summer is all off the ice in terms of, doing some cardio and all that, but also, training your body in different ways that you can't really do during the season. And doesn't matter how hard you work, that first week on the ice is always really tough. And hopefully this won't feel the same as it does the first day on the ice in the summer, but we're all dealing with the same things. I don't think too many people have access to rinks or anything like that. And that's a huge hurdle for a player, I think. Doesn't matter how hard you train, the on-ice stuff is different, and we're going to have to pick it up pretty quick when things turn around here.
Thanks, John. Next question goes to Ken Campbell with Hockey News. Ken, please go ahead. Ken, you're on. All right, welcome back to Ken. Harry Thompson with USA Hockey. Harry, please go ahead.
John, thanks for doing this, and thanks, Sergey, for arranging it. John, I was wondering what kind of advice you'd give to youth hockey players who saw, just like you, had seen their season cut short just before USA Hockey's national championships. What kind of advice would you give them to stay mentally and physically ready for, it may be a long time before they hit the ice as well?
Yeah, that's even more of a unique situation because a lot of, other leagues, from minor hockey all the way up to us have already canceled the rest of their seasons. And maybe that's a lot of kids, last chance to play on that team, or they're moving on to something else. And those are big moments as a kid. I enjoyed my youth hockey experience a lot. And I think just stay as sharp as you can. As a kid, you can't, I didn't have an ice rink to skate on all the time. So practices and games were the only time I would be able to get out there and just be a kid and maybe play other sports and do other things that you can do at home to, change things up that when hockey does come back, you'll miss it even more.
Thanks, Carly. Next question goes to Mike Vogel with Caps.com. Vokes, please go ahead.
Hey, John. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you, Vogsy?
Good. Thanks, man. I'm sure you've seen some of these grandiose plans that have been floated out there, like the NBA taking over Vegas, Major League Baseball doing Arizona, and the NHL potentially trying to go to North Dakota and finishing, having like a tournament situation up there. As a guy who's been to the Olympics and has been through that, where you're sort of sequestered with your teammates for a couple of weeks, how would you see that playing out? And how do you think that would go with the NHL sort of adopting that thing if they can work out all the logistics? It seems like a little bit of a pipe dream.
Yeah, I think it seems like a long shot, but I think having any option is a good option at this point with all the uncertainty going around. And I think it would be cool to, we've all been away from each other a while now, and it'd be nice to have that abbreviated training camp and maybe play as many games as we need to at something like that would kickstart everyone back into gear and get ready for the rest of the season in the playoffs.
Thanks, Carly. Jason Rogers. Jason, please go ahead.
Hey, John. First of all, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So just got a question. This is a time of year when you're usually away from your family more, and I'm sure that's tough, especially when you've got two kids that are at such a fun age and an age where they're growing up so fast. I guess my question is, how much of like a blessing is it getting to spend this time with them at home right now that you don't normally get in the middle of the season?
Yeah, it's interesting and great. I think just being able to see what my wife's had to deal with for the last couple months is pretty sobering, I would say. But yeah, it's fun to get to do a lot of things. Although we are quarantined to the house, it is fun to to see them more. I think hearing my name screamed around the house a lot more is fun. And I think when we look back, and hopefully this thing turns around and everything's gonna be able to finish out like it was, it'll definitely be a moment that I'll remember, that I got to spend that much more time with them and see them kind of grow and turn into real human beings. It's pretty special.
Thanks, Carly. The next question goes to Tarek Al-Bashir with Athletic, also known as K-Man, apparently. Tarek, please go ahead.
Long story. That's my son's gamer tag. Hey, John, how do you kind of cope with the emotional swings? I'm sure a lot of guys are going through, there's going to be no regular season going into the playoffs. There may be no hockey. There might be hockey in a month. Like how do you process just kind of the ups and downs of the daily news stream and not really knowing?
Yeah, I think I just try to leave it out of my hands. I think there's nothing that I can say or read or watch that's going to change the outcome of anything. So it's good to be informed, but it's also, I'm not going to get in the way of myself and thinking things that probably aren't realistic. I think hockey players, there's different phases of the year for us, and especially when you have a family, there's a lot of abrupt changes in our lives, I would say. And kind of at the end of the season, where you're at and what's at stake, and win or go home, all this stuff. So one way or another, what to expect. But with this, obviously a little different, a little harder to get acclimated. I think it took me a little while to get used to being at home all the time, dealing with things all the time with the kids and my wife. And it's tough for everybody, but you make it work. And now we're kind of over that, in between phase and starting to really have some fun.
Thanks, Carly. Next question to Paul with NHL.com. Paul, please go ahead.
Hi, John. Hi, guys. Thank you for connecting us. John, sort of to follow up what K-Man was just talking about, when you've probably played this out in your imagination, when you do come back, if you come back, do you think it's going to feel like a brand new season with a clean slate, or do you think there's any momentum carrying into when you guys do come back? Some teams are playing badly, some teams are playing well, some people were, doing well and not so much. What do you think that's going to be like?
Yeah, I think it'll be a little funky. I think it'll feel like a brand new slate. I think it doesn't matter if you're playing good or bad. We're all going to kind of be at the same level in terms of what we're dealing with now, what we're dealing with in a training camp or games or whatever happens gets decided and what happens. So yeah, it'll definitely feel like a new season almost, although not being that far removed from the day-to-day normalcy that we had before. It'll definitely be new.
Thanks, Carly. Going to go back to Chip with ABC7. Chip, please go ahead.
Kind of piggybacking off that question, whenever we do get back to normal and fans are welcome to come back into the building, I was watching the first game for the Saints after Hurricane Katrina. I kind of feel like it's going to be the same thing for whatever sport gets the first home game in D.C. Have you thought about what that reception is going to be like when we get back to some kind of normal and the fans are in there finally watching sports live in person as you go out there and try and win?
Yeah, I think that'll be a pretty special moment. I hope it's coming, but I have a feeling it's might be a little far off for something like that. But we'll see, and that's just one of those things. But me as a person, I can't wait for sports to come back. It's tough trying to find some stuff on TV at night right now. And as a player, obviously, we want to do what we're supposed to do what we signed up for, and that's kind of the hard part, is just waiting and trying to stay as fresh and keep your mind as fresh as possible to adapt to whatever happens, whether it's quickly or in the long term.
Thanks, Carly. Tom Galletti. Tom, please go ahead.
Hey, John, I know there's more important priorities right now, but you were within reach of some milestones and some individual accomplishments and also some team stuff. That obviously the most important thing, obviously, if you guys try to win the cup again, it'd be disappointing at all just not to have a chance to do that if that's the way this plays out this season.
I'm just worried about playing at this point. I think I don't want to be too optimistic of coming back so quickly and being able to finish the regular season and all that. So I think, all I'm thinking about right now is trying to keep myself in the best shape that I can with the circumstances, and whatever the rest of the season holds, that's I'll worry about that when I lace the skates up again.
Thanks, Carly. Vokes, please go ahead.
My question was somewhat related to Tom's. Actually, I'm wondering. Let's assume for the moment that this season never reaches completion. They're unable to do it. How do you process the great season that you had and the sort of roller coaster season that the team had?
I think you mean you talking like the season's going to end and we're just going to move on to next season? Folks?
Your own terrific season and the team's sort of bumpy one.
Yeah, I think things are crazy right now. It's tough to kind of reflect on all of that with hopes that we are going to be able to resume again. And that's, I don't know. I think personally, I was really looking forward to this time of year. My favorite time to ramp things up to the playoffs and all that. But I think as a team, we weren't where we needed to be. Probably the last 30 or so games. So that was definitely a big talking point for us coming down the stretch and trying to find the right balance of the way that we play our systems and all that. We're kind of, I felt like, starting to come back. So that was kind of the whole season.
Carly, I think you covered your mic, but I had trouble hearing you there. Just for next time.
And the team's sort of bumpy one.
Yeah, I think
Carly, we're still having trouble hearing you. Just can you adjust your mic?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, much better. Thanks, man. Vokes, do you want to ask that question again, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think he got it. I think he answered it.
Okay, sounds good. We'll move on to Rob Carlin. Rob, please go ahead.
This, you were talking about hopefully, and we all can't wait till the fans are back and the arena's rocking again. But that could be a while. Is there thought to, if you did have to play in front of either an empty arena or, certainly a partially empty arena, what that would be like, and how do you, because, Wilson, Ovi, a big hit, the crowd roars, you build off that momentum. If that's not there, how do you generate that by yourself without that crowd?
Yeah, I think the whole dynamic will be different. I think whether you're playing good on the road or at home, the buildings are a big contrast in terms of who's cheering and who's not, and booing and all that. So there's so many factors. I think it'll be so weird with all that happened that will just be the new normal for whatever that period of time will be. But yeah, it'll be challenging. I think you feed a lot off the crowd, whether it's for you or against you. I think you're just used to that. We haven't played in an empty building, in a long time. So, but it'll be weird for all of us. So I think in that sense, it'll start to feel normal pretty quickly.
Hey, John, thanks for doing this. I don't know if you answered this earlier, but what are you doing specifically to stay fit in like hockey shape? I know you mentioned like cardio earlier. So what are you doing specifically to kind of stay in shape?
Yeah, our trainers have given us programs every week from when we left the arena. And I think all types of different cardio, shuttle runs, turnovers, some longer, drawn out stuff, just to try to keep different types of capacities in us, and trying to use whatever you can to stay in shape weight wise, whether that's a lot of body weight only exercises or the few weights that you do have lying around that you've never used until now. Just trying to mix things up the best you can and try to stay as fresh as you can.